Canelo Alvarez stopped Billy Joe Saunders at the end of the 8th round. He retires in his corner. Looked like a fractured orbital bone. The way that the final punch kind of happened was it looked like Billy Joe threw a punch, Canelo rocked back and threw a right uppercut that caught Billy Joe right on his eye as he was sort of dipping down. I think he was expecting a straight or a hook, and so he thought he was slipping down. Canelo catches him with that uppercut literally with his movement, and the momentum of that punch. I mean, you could see when he came up from that, his eye was puffy and purple, and I had a feeling from the way he started to retreat immediately that the fight was going to be winding down soon. Wasn't surprised at all, really, that the corner stopped it. I thought, to be honest with you, it was probably a good stoppage. I've seen some people kind of breaking his walls about him being a quitter and whatever, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I know that there's guys who have fought with that injury, but one of them is Antonio Margarito, and his eye has always looked like it was an eye of another person. Like one eye is his eye, and then there's like this foreign eye. Like it never looked the same. So there's always the possibility, if you fight through that injury, that you're either never the same or you're unable to resume your career. So I think it's tough for anybody to say, to make a judgment on the stoppage and on like his willingness to continue fighting. I'm sure if you asked him and it was solely his decision, he probably would have continued. But it looked like his corner was, once he said he couldn't see, it looked like his corner was basically, waving it off anyway. It was a really impressive fight, man. Canelo was on the front foot right from jump. And I noticed early in the fight, he was already starting to cut the ring off, and he was making Billy Joe miss his jab. You could see that Saunders wasn't used to that kind of pressure, it being that effective, and him being able to, close the distance so easily. Closing the distance, being able to be on top of you like that with very subtle movements. So it's like immediately the combination of the upper body movement, the forward movement, and the counter punching, it keeps guys in a very defensive place where they're just sort of trying to stay away from him. But it looked like in the 4th that he found a little something. I thought Saunders definitely won the 5th. And then the 6th, I remember being a little closer, but by the 7th round, you could tell that was kind of when Canelo took it up that one more gear. And by, in the 8th round, obviously catches him with the uppercut, and the fight is over from there. It felt to me a little bit like the zone was almost like manufacturing a close fight with the commentary. One of them had it like 5 rounds to 3 or 5 rounds to 2 or some shit at one point for Saunders. I'm like, yo, like, what the fuck is that? There's no way that's a 5 rounds to 2 for Saunders fight. I'm watching it, I'm like, it's a competitive fight. There's no doubt about it. It's a competitive fight. Saunders is holding his own. He's not getting his ass kicked in any round except for the 8th round, really. And I just don't know where those cards came from. And even then, they were all trying to say, like, oh, this is a very, very close fight. I didn't see it as a close fight, honestly. I thought that Saunders was competitive in most rounds, but I think at most he won 2 rounds. At most. And I think that's like Canelo's getting to that point, kind of like Mayweather, where he's so dominant in most rounds now, to where if it's like a competitive round, you shade it towards the opponent. And I don't necessarily know if that's fair, but I think that's a little bit what happened in this fight. It's like the Callum Smith fight, the Yildirim fight. He's just dominating every second of the fight, and even sometimes in the Kovalev fight, it was like even if it's close, he's in control of what's happening. And so I think a lot of us have grown so accustomed to his dominance that seeing somebody, trying to win the fight and winning some moments and maybe even winning some rounds, it's like maybe we think we're seeing something we're not. You know what I mean? And aside from that, he's got the defense part of the Mayweather effect now. You know what I mean? Where his upper body movement and his blocking and his parrying and the way he steps out out of range real quick and then is right back in range. Like, his defense has gotten so good, man, that he really makes these guys nervous to let their big shots go, because they're tired. They within a couple of rounds they're tired of missing. They're tired of throwing an air and glove. You know, they're tired of miscalculating it. You know what I mean? So they stop throwing their best shots, and then from there, once he's got them, you know, frustrated with their own offense, now he's got them on the run a little bit because he's counterpunching everything they're doing. You know, and Saunders is a very, very good boxer. Nice IQ. You know, really good boxing IQ in basically any fight I've ever seen him in. And, I mean, he just was playing at a different level than Saunders the whole fight from the opening bell. I felt like it was obvious that he was just on one more level. It's not that Saunders didn't have something to offer in the fight and didn't make it interesting at times, but honestly, man, like, I feel like he's just a head above everybody he's getting in the ring with right now, and he's fighting world champions and mandatories. You know, I'm not saying it's the absolute cream of the crop of boxing that he's fighting, but he's fighting world-class fighters every time out. He's making it look very easy. So it's tough to be critical of that in a sense, because it's like, you know, here's an undefeated champion. Callum Smith was an undefeated champion. He's not shying away from champions in their prime. I think there's still guys I'd rather see him fighting than the guys he's fighting. So I get that when people kind of feel that way too, but he's not. You know, and you can't find killers every single time out, right? So the fights like Yildirim or Rocky Fielding, those fights are always going to be there, you know, because you can't fight. I got this new fucking mic stand. It's still fucking wiggling around. You got you know, if you fight killers every single time out, you know, you're going to gas out. And you also have to stay busy if you can't seal a big fight.